August the 2nd, 2024. Guys, you're looking at a map of Cuba, and the track, you see the line there is the last location. This came in at 1 o'clock this afternoon, an hour and a half ago, of the center of circulation, and we now have a tropical depression. It will more than likely be Tropical Storm Debbie. They're not predicting it to get much stronger because let me say it like this. In the last 3 days, we've seen this thing move from the plot where it could hit up into Carolina, down to Florida, then most of Florida, now into the Gulf. Without hitting Florida from the east side, it's going to get you from the west side according to the new plots. But this current location that came in right here, and they're monitoring the Hurricane Hunter aircraft, which is up and flying now. Anyway, again, remember these numbers: 21 north, 77.6 west, and here we've got 28.8 mile per hour winds in the system now, and wind gust up to 40.3 miles, again, hour and a half ago. Now, in the earlier updates, and they haven't been changed as of the 2 o'clock update today, but these were earlier. And I drew the lines, I put in the dots, guys, right to where they're saying your longitude and latitude is for the location that they're predicting. That's how they do their paths. And so this is showing that we're dealing with the storm coming in here. Let's look where it's coming into Florida at, right in there. This is Wakasasa Bay Preserve Park, part of the Goth State Forest here. Otter Creek, Rosewood, Cedar Key right there, guys. And coming in along this area, here's Homasa Springs, St. Martin's Marsh Aquatic Preserve coming in here. So that's what we've had, and they haven't changed it yet. But remember the last coordinate that we got from Fox. And let's pull this up. And that's right here, guys. It's not going in this line. And I figured it would be happening like this because it has each day changed a little more to the west. So how will that affect what we're dealing with? This is about 50 miles right now. If you drew a line from here to here, then so we're already 50 miles basically going west instead of, let me put that back, sorry, going west instead of west northwest. So the further it comes this way before it turns, and let's back it up, if you just bring this arc out a little bit further, if it were to turn here and start doing a parallel up to this, you can see we would be up in this area of Florida. But we're still a couple days out, and we know it will change. But I just wanted to point that out, guys. We got about a 50-mile change here. Now, it was not supposed to change at all until here, but we can see that very clearly. Now, this update, guys, is 45 minutes old. It came out at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's following the track according to the coordinates that we had this morning on the printouts. What we're seeing here, and this is moving to the west, we know it is unless there's something that makes it curve quicker or sooner than they're expecting. But you're looking at around Sunday, 8 a.m., 50 mile per hour tropical storm Debbie coming ashore. That's a good time. You don't want it coming in the middle of the night. You understand, guys? At least you're up. You can see. That's the main thing. You can see what's going on around you. And at night, it's very tough. High winds, a lot of times powers out, even with a tropical storm. Remember, Burl had slowed down, but look at the damage it did. Houston was without power for 2 weeks, guys. Now, the governor of Texas has said some pretty harsh words about, I think it's ERCOT, the power company in that district, about they're not taking money and upgrading things the way they should be and keeping them up with maintenance and hardening the process. And so he was really getting on their butt about that. Again, 30 mile per hour winds moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. It's a pretty good clip there. And they started with the same coordinates that we did earlier today right there. So we know it's going to move slightly to the west, guys. Could end up coming into the Pensacola-Mobile area if it just follows this arc that we're seeing from the second point this morning. If you follow that point, and use what's called a data arc span, which is used for comets and asteroids, things like that. You may only see a certain section of it, as it's coming out from behind a planet or whatever. But if you just get a few points of that data arc span, guys, you can plot both forward and backwards, and that's how they'll find or get a full orbit in a model for a comet. It's not actually tracking that whole time, but it gets enough information to do that. So if we are 50 miles off down here now, right in this area, then if it expands proportionally at that same angle, then we very well could be again into the Mobile, Pensacola area here. If it keeps moving, then it could end up in Mississippi or Louisiana. Houston, I hope you don't have any problems this time out of this storm. And I'll say this, it's not your first time, but it's one of the longest periods that you've been out of power. A lot of you guys are there, I think, nearly 2 weeks. I have a brother there. I talked to him back and forth, and they were without power. And just think about things. We were without power and water for 2 weeks after Katrina. I've mentioned it many times. But I learned lessons. Water filtration, solar panels, backup. In his case, you was too late to talk about it. We talked about the future, but he lives in a community it's you don't have real big yards and things like that, and they would have to put it on the back roof. But right now they've got these portable solar generators. We have them on our website. Other people have them, to where in an emergency you can roll it out on the patio or the carport or whatever outside in the sun, fold out these 4 panels that are 50 watts apiece, 200 watts, and keep that generator going all through the day, and then use after the sun's going down. Of course, you won't be pulling power from the sun, but it has these huge lithium batteries in there that really can carry you through. And those things are something to talk about. Also, if you don't have electricity, you can't pump gas at the stations. So fill your cars up all the way from Florida to Houston. Start getting your your bug out bag ready, batteries, all of the above. So again, at this curve, we're probably looking at about Sunday 8 a.m., which is perfect because it's not coming in at night. It will cover the entire section of Florida there in the daylight, according to this current model. Our model is showing just a little bit different, but we expect that. Now, this was updated just a few minutes ago at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, so it would be 21 minutes ago. Spaghetti models, which still do not include the Navy or the Canadian model, are showing coming in anywhere from right here below Tampa to above Tampa, right through there. And that's kind of where we have the storm coming in the middle of this, in that data that we put in the map this morning. But with the new one, that's changed it. And so this is where they're talking about. Either way, Florida, it's a large storm. It may not be powerful. It could be a major rain event. It could knock out power with either high winds or knocking out transformers as trees fall on them, and flooding transformers, all of that. So all of you in that area right now, you be prepared. It could shift back to the right and the center come up through Miami. But we've seen the drift basically to the left, westward. Now notice the Keys, guys, right there. You're going to be in that northeast quadrant of the storm. It's not going to be a good time to be there for many reasons. Flooding, again, no power. And if you wait too long and it maybe becomes a Category 1, the roads are going to be blocked getting out of there. Just don't risk it. I've done it, and I've been caught in some storms, and they're really, when it's really peaking out, as far as high winds and the noise, and it's at nighttime, your power's out, you are really hoping that you never have to go through that again. You don't want to do it. Now, 2 p.m. Eastern update, which would make this a couple of hours old almost now, still saying, and they're tracking from the earlier information, that Sunday morning, 8 a.m., coming ashore right here in Central Florida. The yellow lines here across the Keys are tropical storm watches. The blue lines are tropical storm warnings. And so more than likely you're going to have Tropical Storm Debbie. But again, the Keys right here, you're in a tropical storm watch, you're going to catch it because it's going to, you're small, it's a small area. You're not going to be slowing down the storm that much. And just you're in the wrong side of it. Now, if it moves further out into the Gulf, here's what's going to happen. It will not scrape up that edge of Florida quite so bad because we've seen them do this too many times, and there's water spouts, power outages, flooding, roads blocked, and everything like that. But what will happen if this thing moves further out? It has no land to slow it down until it gets into this part of the Gulf, right? Right here, it's coming off Cuba. What have you got? About 90 miles maybe across the Florida Strait here. It's a storm by then. That's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. around sunset. And but it will be out because it's coming back ashore so quickly. It won't have time to strengthen. But if it stays on this path that we're looking at now, it will have all the time it needs to strengthen. Because staying that close to shore and then coming back will eat the storm away. It will just dissipate. But they are saying it's going to remain a tropical storm all the way through Florida and back out into the Atlantic, coming out somewhere around the Florida-Georgia line, right on the coast there, being here off of the North Carolina coast, 8 a.m. Wednesday, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, being off the South Carolina coast, and being here at 8 a.m. Monday. You can just see the timing here. 8 p.m. Sunday, it's moved from here to here. And it looks like the way they're showing it, it's going to still have the center of circulation offshore right there, and maybe coming in through here, raking the shoreline. Quite a bit of it, by the way. Tropical storms are nothing to play with because they can have very high wind gusts. Now, this is this peak storm surge forecast that they're putting out now. It's Charlotte Harbor, 1 to 3 feet. Tampa Bay, 1 to 3 feet. That will increase if the storm picks up. Plus, look at your local tide data. Because if you got high tide, it changes everything, right? If it's low tide, it helps. High tide when it's coming in. And in the updates, as we get a little closer to landfall, I'll come in with some tide data. But you can look that up, Florida tides, and they will show you more the high and low and all of that. Just Google it in. But they've got this from Arapica through Tampa all the way through Card Sound Bridge here. And, of course, that would include the Keys. They don't have anything here on it, but I'm just saying you're going to have storm surge there too. Let's take a look at the rainfall amounts in this prediction. In the orange, which is the highest that we see on the map, you're talking about 8 to 12 inches. You see that? 6 to 4 in the yellow, 2 to 4 in the green, 1 to 2 in the light green. And so it's going to be a rain event, Florida. This time of the year, with fires going on everywhere, just thank God for the rain. But if you're in low-lying areas, you know where you're at, in any of these states, be aware that you don't want to be stuck somewhere. If you got to move some stuff, get yourself out of there for a day or two, do that. And again, we'll know more about it, but this is what they're putting out now. And you can see the heaviest is right here, where it's probably coming ashore, just north of Tampa Bay. And then offshore as it gets back into the Gulf Stream between Savannah and Charleston, and in this area of Wilmington. Now, that's all going to be moving up through Hatteras before it's over with. It maybe not this exact path, but it could be very accurate as far as the rainfall amounts. Now, this is where the risk of flash flooding is next 5 days. The green is marginal, at least 5% chance of flash flooding. The yellow is slight, at least 15% chance. And again, these areas would change somewhat with that storm, but these are the possibilities that we're seeing now. Now, let's look at our satellite information over the U.S., guys, and parts of northern Mexico and southern Canada. You can see in the bottom right, you're already getting very good images, and we haven't zoomed in yet, of this storm. I just want to point out, this morning's video, we're seeing that storm come out of Texas and across Oklahoma down through there, and this heat has just completely evaporated that. Check it out. It's hot. And yesterday we peaked out on the heat on our heat indices at 118. Let me turn around. I'll give it to you now. We are at 112 now, guys, and it is at 3:02 p.m. We got some cloud cover from what you're looking at there, and actually some of this yellow haze you're seeing in the southeast is the Saharan dust layer has made it this far. It's not as thick as we've seen it, but that yellowish tint, if you're looking out at your trees, that's what you're seeing now. But let's move this up and look down into the Caribbean. Now, in this morning's video, it looked to me like this thing was moving a little west, but there was so much cloud cover you couldn't really see the very center of it. But we were looking at it, and I think that's what we're seeing happening now. Again, center's not completely wrapped, but look here, right below Cuba, between there and Jamaica. A lot of moisture is fixing to be pulled into this thing. And again, it does look like it's moving more due west. When will it take this turn? You can see Florida here in the Keys right there, guys. We don't know yet. All I need is a couple more plots, and we should be getting them soon. Of the once they update their longitude and latitude, we can get a very good arc span again on what we're seeing. But this is where we're at now. Let me back it up just a hair. And guys, with the heating that we have, we're very fortunate that the storm has spent much of its time on land once it got into the Caribbean. It's very large. It's larger than Burrow was when it came into Houston. But remember the first tropical storm of the year, it was large. Also in Houston, you got flooded then a few months back. But this gives you a very good perspective right in here. Here's our center. It almost looks like it's about to come back offshore and not follow Cuba on those dots in this section, and like that. It looks like to me we're getting very close to this thing moving offshore. If it does that tonight, it could very possibly come across the Cayman Islands and then the very western tip of Cuba, and that would slow it down some. Just depends, but wherever it crosses Cuba, it looks like now it's going to be a little further to the left or to the west. Let's look at it in infrared for a moment. You can see that you've got some very good strong storms in the bottom section of the rotation. Storms on the western side. Top, it's starting to build. This thing may wrap up pretty quick. The quicker it gets offshore, the more it will intensify and gather up, because you got some mountains on Cuba and high places and things like that can tear this thing down some. It just depends on where it crosses Cuba at. Again, if it comes across West Cuba, notice how much narrower it is out on this peninsula of that part, or this point right there. So it won't be across land as long. Those are the things we have to watch for and be aware of. That's why I like doing the coordinates myself from the computer printouts. And if that's only tool we had and satellite observation like this, we could figure this stuff out pretty quick. But it's great that you have the surge forecast, peak surges and stuff like that. So it's very helpful. The guys are working as hard as they can, but I just like to keep an eye on where the thing is actually going. Now, here's our mid-level water vapor loop right here. And you can see that this is about to merge with this section. This blue is wet air. Green, of course, these are the cloud tops. But the yellow is dry air, and that's something that will tear the storm down. So the Gulf is getting set up, guys, with moisture already. So when it gets here, which could be sometimes tonight or early in the morning, it's going to have something to intensify with. It can't just sit there in dry air and do anything. Everything's setting up for this thing to become at least a hurricane and move a little further west. Now, let's look at a different filter. What this is showing us is the cloud tops are in red, but the surface spin you see is kind of a pink color. See the lighter differences there in that? And so, again, you can tell where the moisture's building up, and it's building up as we speak right here. So it's going to have plenty of heat, plenty of energy right there. There's not a lot of upper level wind shear. Notice that? But what is happening? This is pushing west. And will that affect the storm and drive it further to the left, back towards Louisiana and Texas? We're just going to have to see. I'm looking at what could happen here and kind of putting my 2 cents in it. Now, I want to take a look over on the west coast for just a moment. We'll zoom in there, but let's take a look at our infrared on kind of a wide view over here. You've got showers forming along this line. up in the northern Gulf. And you've got some moisture up in California where you need it very badly. Now, it's not showing high reds like we're seeing down across this storms. But let us know, guys. Sometimes this will be just cloud cover with a little moisture in it. But we're watching for the fires up here, and we're going to take a closer look at it. And you've got Washington. You have moisture coming in through here, up going towards Canada. Every little drop will help with these fires right now. California, you still have this fire up here in your northern section right there. Are they calling that the Park Fire? I think so, maybe. Anyway, you're still seeing the smoke, and it looks like it's kind of moving a little further south as it burns. And look at the smoke here in Oregon. You got a spot here and here. And if we look over here, guys, I'm going to bring it up because there's a lot of smoke coming through here. And I'm going through a lot of this live with you, so just bear with me on that. But let's move up and see where all of this is happening. You got a lot of contrails in there, guys. You notice that. Now, looking over into, I think this is British Columbia, guys. Here's the border with Canada. You've got fires here, down in this area. And notice when it first starts to cycle, a lot of smoke is being blown from overnight burning here in Washington, it looks like. A lot of that is coming from this point. It also looks like a lot's getting trapped in these valleys, guys. I don't know what your air quality is, but be careful with that. You get down south, we're dealing with not this, but we have the Saharan sand layer, which kind of gives you the same effect as smoke. You don't smell it like that, but it gets you that haze. And looking at the Four Corners, we've been watching a fire up in northern Colorado, guys, and it looks like that it's a little better in control than some of the ones all the way over in California. It's hot conditions. You may have gotten a little bit of this moisture floating around. Don't know, but again, we're not seeing as large of plumes, but right in that same area, guys. What is that? That would be south of Fort Collins. Let us know if you're in that area, but it looks better than we've seen in the last few days. Guys, I'm going to back out of here. Remember, watch the storm. As soon as we get some updates later this afternoon, I'm going to check the coordinates and see what we find out, and I'll give you a report. It's a heads up, guys. Be safe.